Hello everybody, welcome back to yet another video. It has been a minute, I do apologize, but we have an interesting topic to talk about today, which is I don't know what I'm going to name this video yet, but I think it's going to be something like how to get better at iRacing or how to enjoy iRacing more. And I just wanted to talk about a few different points that I've had regarding my driving and my experience on iRacing lately. And so right off the bat, I want to make it clear, this has been something that I've discussed on my main YouTube channel before. I'll leave that in the description in case you're interested. We build cars over on that channel. But I want to be a racing driver in real life, as I'm sure a lot of us watching this video do. And so I use iRacing as a tool to help me prepare for that because I can't afford to actually go racing. And so I take iRacing very seriously in the sense of I take my practice, my training, the setups and stuff. I take that all very seriously. But I noticed that I had to kind of step off the gas pedal a little bit in how serious I was taking it, and so that's why I took a break and you didn't see me for a couple weeks there, because at the end of the day that's something that's not going to happen for a very long time. And so there's no need to stress that and like blow it out of proportion. You just need to, you know, dedicate the certain hours to a week to getting better and whatnot, but we'll discuss that later on. So the first thing I wanted to talk about of why I was taking it so seriously was my way too heavy focus on iRating. We discussed that in the last video. It's called like I've changed my mentality on iRacing or something like that. I don't actually remember what it's called, but we discussed how basically I just don't care about my iRating anymore, in the sense of I'm just not so concerned as I used to be. And I think that's really important for any ranked game or sim, whatever you're doing. It's not a true reflection of how good you are. It's just a statistical number to help you matchmake and put you with people who are in a similar position as you. And I think that's really all it should be looked at. And with iRacing, your iRating is just going to increase over time the more you do races. So that's what the main point of this video is what I've learned the most is that it's so important that you just get races and gain experience. And so that's what's really changed in the past 2 weeks during my break, is I realize I just need to get out there on track. I just need to drive, just get more experience under my belt. Of course, I think I have almost like 6 years or 7 years worth of sim racing. I started back in 2017 or 2016 or something like that when I was in high school, and I've been doing it for a very long time now. And I've just noticed that, although I know how to drive a race car pretty well, I need to understand how to race a race car pretty well, because there's a difference between one lap pace and actually racing. And I learned this from watching Scott Dixon in the IndyCar series this past year. Very, I would say, older driver in the field. I think he's almost 42 now or something like that. I'm not sure of his exact age, but he's a very well-seasoned veteran in IndyCar. And he never really qualified all that well throughout the year. There was a couple times where he finished towards the top in the Fast Six, but he was usually towards the back of the field. But because of his experience, because of the team's knowledge with their pit stop strategy and stuff like that, he always finished towards the front. And that's what I noticed is so important, as there's going to be a funny little incident here. I think that was kind of just a racing incident. I felt like he saw me on the inside there, but this kind of stuff happens. So I'll play it in slow-mo. You can have a look at it again, be the judge for yourself for that one. But yeah, Scott Dixon is like the master at knowing how to plan out a race, because at the end of the day, I like doing these longer races in iRacing because it's more realistic. That's what a real race is like. Real races are usually half an hour or longer, and that usually means there's at least one pit stop in them, and you need to plan out your strategy. You need to have a strategy. You need to know how to make a pit stop. You need to know, how the car is progressing over time and stuff like that. And so that's why I find it really important to do this type of stuff, and why I modeled my driving after Scott Dixon, because he is just so good at knowing how an IndyCar progresses over the course of a race or over the course of a stint. And it's something that was really cool to watch in person. So I've tried to kind of replicate that here in the sense of the way that he drives is not so much, you know, a lot of people on iRacing tend to try and win the race in the first 3 laps. And I just don't find that as a recipe for success. As you've seen here in this race, I started, I don't even know, P19 or something like that, P16, way towards the back of the field. And I did that on purpose because I wanted to showcase that it's not about starting at the front. You don't even have to qualify to finish towards the front. And so that's what I've done here. I've started all the way at the back, but I wanted to show you guys through just managing the pace, making smart overtakes, knowing when to push, when to hold back, that you could actually get yourselves to the front as well. And I found that so important. This was a major lesson for me, because although this is a lower split lobby and you can see a lot of people like this guy here making mistakes, it just goes to show that as long as you're in control of yourself, you should have a good result in any race. That's on iRacing, ACC, in real life. As long as you're in control, you're prepared for the race that you're doing, you're going to be all right. And so that segues to our next point that we wanted to talk about, is how I prepare for these races, because that is such an important part of iRacing that I don't think a lot of people take seriously enough. And that is, you need to prepare, you know, a couple days before, a day before, for what's coming up in the schedule. And that's how I approach every series in iRacing. So I usually pick the series that I want to race. This is a funny little traffic jam here as I get wedged behind the Ferrari there. Usually I pick what series I want to race in before I'm going to do it that week. And then I load up the track, and I know it's not easy for everybody, especially if you have a job or something like that. You just don't have a lot of time to commit. But usually what I like to do is just 1 hour. I just load up the car, load up a setup. I usually get them from Craig's setup shop or something like that. And I just drive for 1 hour, try to get as good as I can around the track, and try to think about, like, while I'm driving around the track, I try to think about the race. All right, where am I going to overtake people? Where are people going to try and overtake me? What sections am I stronger at? What am I weaker at? And the most important thing that I can't emphasize enough is I practice the pit stops. It is so important that you practice and master the pit stop, because if you're going to do a longer race like a lot of these A-class races are, you need to be able to make up that time during the pit stop, because that is where a lot of people lose their time. And you'll see that in this video as this goes and plays later on throughout the course of this video. So yeah, that is such an important thing. I can't emphasize that enough. Is you just, if you want to be good at something, it's like anything else. You need to practice. And so for this race, I'll actually give you the details of what I did, which was, honestly, I did this race October 31st, and I think October 30th, I just loaded up iRacing late at night, and for 1 hour, I just drove around just by myself, and then for another hour, I made a collection on trading paints of GT3 and GTP cars, and I just drove those around and just loaded up an AI car set and, you know, ran around with an AI car set for, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes or something like that, just so I could get used to driving around Monza with other cars, and I could figure out how the Cadillac handled and stuff like that. Now, I would say if I was in some type of esport or league or something like that, I would do a lot more practice, just because I've learned from the other stuff in life that I'm really good at, that the more practice you put into something, the more those nerves kind of go away, and you just don't really feel nervous about competing. And so if I was doing like a league race or an esports race, I'd probably up that to maybe like 4 to 6 hours of practice per session, just so I'd know that I'm like super dialed in and I'm ready to go here. But you can see stuff like this. This is the stuff I'm talking about. This overtake right here, you know, I make it very obvious that I'm going up the inside. This is a very realistic move. He fights it really well in the sense of he doesn't try to take me out or defend super hard or anything like that, and the move is done. But also important details, like you can see the MGUK, I turn that up to attack mode to make sure I have the speed coming out of the corner so that he can't get by me again, and then turn it back down to balanced here in the braking zone so I can get a nice regeneration of the hybrid system because of that. So that's the type of details that I'm talking about, where if you practice, you might, or what I mean is, like, if you don't practice, you might miss that type of stuff. You might not know to do those type of things, whereas if you are practicing, you'll know that just a little detail like that is actually so important and goes a really, really long way. So yeah, that's a really important note that I wanted to go over and just talk about. So the last thing I wanted to say was I'm going to branch off more on the whole experience thing. I think it's just important to not be afraid to do races. You know, as we've seen in this race and a bunch of my other races, you know, one thing that stops a lot of people from queuing on iRacing is they don't want to crash. And because, you know, if you crash, you lose I rating and you lose safety rating. But you have to keep in mind, that stuff is just going to happen. It happens all the time. It happens with the biggest YouTubers. It happens to Max Verstappen, for Christ's sake. I mean, it literally happens to everybody. It's just a part of racing. When you're moving that fast and you have that amount of focus, like, these type of incidents just occur. So it's important to note that don't let that hold you back from queuing on iRacing. I think you should just queue the races anyways, because if anything, if you do get in those incidents or you do have crashes, you can learn something from it. You'll know that maybe that wasn't the smartest overtake. Maybe I braked too hard, or maybe I didn't brake enough as we make our pit stop here. This is what I'm going to talk about, though. Like, this experience of this pit stop, I know not to do this again. Well, I changed the fuel as I'm going in, and this GT3 car comes out as I'm trying to go in, and he blinded me from my pit box, so I couldn't see my my pit crew guy. So I know next time that if I see a car pulling out, just back off a little bit so I can see where my pit box is, and maybe not try and change the fuel as I'm driving down the pit lane. But that's the type of stuff I'm talking about. Is the more experience you have, the more situations you're going to come across of random things happening, so you'll be more prepared next time. Because it's why I started at the back of the field for this race, because I know how hectic Monza is into T1, and I know, you know, these people on iRacing, especially a lower split lobby like this, and I don't think it's anybody's fault. I think, you know, with lower split people, they're just trying to win. They're trying to get their I rating up. They always try to win the race in the first 3 laps, and you can see how many cars I overtook in the first 3 laps because of that. And that's just because of my experience that I've had. From all the races I've queued, I've just understood that, you know, it's not about winning it in the first 3 laps, because at the end of the day, this is a 45-minute race, and that's only 5 minutes of the race. So you need to understand how to manage the race better if you're struggling in that area. Because it's really important to know how to manage the course of a race over a certain period of time, as we end up making an overtake up the inside here. But you can see how I approached that overtake as well. I wasn't super aggressive on him. I wasn't weaving around all over the place. I wasn't, you know, trying to run him off the road. I just was simply following behind him, waited for him to make a mistake, and then cleanly make the overtake up the inside here. And then, very important, I brake in the middle of the track so that he can't make an overtaking move and, you know, try and do like a switchback or something like that. You'll see that a lot in F1. But yeah, that was pretty much it for this race and all the stuff that I wanted to talk about. So hopefully you guys got something from that. And you can see we ended up actually P3 here after all of that cycles out. Is starting in, I think, 16th is where we started, now that I think about it. So yeah, let me know in your comments let me know in the comments below what you guys think of this video, if you agree with any of those points, if you have any points for yourself or any questions that you'd like for me to answer, leave them in the comments below, and maybe I can make a video on it next time. But yeah, that's just what I wanted to talk about in this one. I found that was a very valuable lesson that I've learned recently, and so I figured maybe I could help somebody out by explaining that type of stuff. And yeah, so hopefully if you guys enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that typical YouTuber stuff. Of course, we try to upload videos regularly on this channel. Of course, I'm trying to balance the main channel as well, so it's a little difficult to kind of get both out sometimes, which is what happened this past time. But yeah, that is going to be it for this video. Thank you guys so much. And yeah, I'd love to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. And I guess that is going to be it for today. So thank you guys so much, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.